All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your Friday, Good Friday, nonetheless, if you celebrate, for what we are deeming happy hour, because the conversations that we are going to be having here are exactly that. It's to bring help, hope, and some additional education we need right now that is relevant to what we are experiencing, and more importantly, thinking and pivoting forward. So what does that look like? What can we plan for? You know, what could we be considering in this downtime that has been impacting all of us? And of course, for some of us, it's a welcomed pause, but for others, it's an unwelcomed worry. And so our goal right now is to bring something substantial through every episode that can be implemented into your business, something you could consider to amp up what you're already doing, information to help you pivot forward, make better decisions for you in the long term. And all of our speakers are either people who are in the industry or those who have something that we don't have enough information about. So today we are so excited to have Melissa and Shane Douglas. They are just amazing entrepreneurs. They have and currently own a business, but have worked in a more traditional business. I'll let them tell you a little bit more about that, and have evolved into finances and insurance. And also Melissa and Shane are brilliant at networking. They know the power of putting the right people in front of other people and making those beautiful connections. So I'm excited to bring them here to connect with all of us and just pour some sugar on us, guys. Help us out. Tell us what we can do. And I know that you guys will be rewarded at the end.
Hey, everyone. We are so thankful to be here. So we are Shane and Melissa Douglas. And like Lindsay said, this is either a welcomed pause for people or an unwelcomed worry. And we hope to shed some light that you can find some tools and resources through our conversation today, so it can be more of a welcomed pause for you and your family. So I am going to pull up our chat so we can chat with y'all while we go through this. But the topic for our conversation are 3 things to avoid financially during this time. And Lindsay has said a little bit, but Shane, this is my husband, obviously. We used to own a business where we manufactured leather goods in the city of Detroit. And that's kind of our first introduction to owning business. So it was very much so brick and mortar. We were non-essential in every way possible. And I cannot express how I feel towards everyone in the industry who's being told that they can't work right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
It gives me a pit in my stomach. And I have also recognized in this time, like, even though that is the case, I am confident and I fully believe that each and every single person who watches this and who's watching this right now has an interesting opportunity at their hands to really pivot their business, to shift, and to ask themselves, how can I come out of this on the other end, not only as a better human, but as a better business owner, as someone who can bring value and add more to the community. So as we go through this, definitely keep those things in mind. And I would love everyone to pop open their chat really quick. And, well, I'll have you do it in just a second. But we are going to utilize the chat. I know everyone knows where it is. So as we get into this, this is how you can stay in touch with us. I did already post our Instagram, but we would love for you to connect with us there. We also have the ability for you to book a call with us, a 15-minute call. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. But
yeah, and I appreciate you, Lindsay, so much for having us on. It's been awesome getting to know you, and it's just been incredible to be able to be a part of this. And I think that I really would like to emphasize to feel free for people to book a call with us, because we will probably unpack a few things in the next 15 minutes that will reveal additional questions. And I'd love to open the space for y'all to be able to ask more and dive deeper into it. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. And, when we were putting this together initially, this entire event was going to be in person. And we were so excited to deliver a lot of content, a lot of deliverables, and then everything has shifted. So 𝘠𝘪𝑒𝑎 and her team have done an incredible job pivoting this entire event, which we're really thankful for. And as we were preparing some material for it, we were thinking, how can we bring the most value in under 20 minutes? And I can't emphasize what Shane said enough, right? Like having a 15-minute call with someone who can walk you through some of the things that we talk about a little bit more personalized. I certainly suggest doing that. So what are the 3 things, Shane?
Well, we're going to dive into 3 things. One being a bad mindset, not to have a bad mindset. These are the 3 things to avoid: is a bad mindset. Okay. Second is not having life insurance. And the third is not having a plan moving forward. And I want to share something just real quick, because everybody on this call, you have some association with hair. I honor what you guys do so much. I love nothing more than going and getting my hair done and being pampered. So I'm honestly in a position where I'm like, shoot dang, what am I going to do in the next couple of days when my hard part has grown in? Okay. So if y'all got any advice, please post it. I would love to know what to do. Otherwise, I'm going to turn into a savage with some clippers. Okay.
They'll be bald.
But these are 3 areas that have been phenomenal. I've experienced actually having these conversations with my barber. Okay. So as you're working with people, you're a trusted source. So we hope that this provides you some knowledge for moving forward in your own lives, along with knowledge that you can then further equip people with when you're actually doing your work.
So the first thing is avoiding a bad mindset. Anytime we're talking about finances, anytime we're talking about business, anytime we're talking about our work, we've got to avoid having a bad mindset. So first, it is imperative that we are defining what we believe. So now is when I would love for you to pop open the chat box and write down, what is your biggest financial concern right now? What is it that you're thinking? Even if it's a thought that you've identified, oh, I shouldn't be thinking this. What are some thoughts that you guys are thinking about finances right now, about business? And we'll use some of those examples here in a second. But when we can identify our current thoughts, we can then identify a thought that we can replace the previous thought with to shift our mindset. So what it says, what are you believing will happen to finances during this time? And really in general, because if any of you are familiar with self-development, if any of you are familiar with growing as a person, right now, every single thing that you've learned in the last year, 2, 3 years, it's really being tested. And if we have if we can identify the belief, like, I don't believe I can make money during this time, we can identify that is not a belief or a thought that is going to serve me during this. So we can create a new belief. So we can create the belief of money flows easily and freely to me. We can create the belief, even though I'm unable to create income by servicing clients, I can create income in a different way. And then we can create declarations around that. So we're literally rewiring new pathways in our brain. And something that has helped me tremendously during this time is really understanding from a higher perspective of what exactly is going on. And I'm not talking about what's going on with the virus or what's going on in the world, but as a business owner, what's going on? How can I shift and pivot, and how can I create more value for people? Because listen, I've got a lot of friends that work in I shouldn't say a lot, but at least a handful of friends that work in the industry. And right now, you have a special opportunity to create content to serve your clients, to serve your client base, and bring value to them. So then as soon as there's the opportunity, you better believe, I want nothing more than to go and give $200 to the person that does my hair and tip them better than ever. So I am going to, I just posted a link. So if you click that link, you can download a podcast sheet that I created, and it's actually clickable. So if you have an iPhone, if you don't, then you'll just have to search it in your podcast app. But in there are 5 podcasts that have really helped Shane to understand what's going on during this time. So highly suggest that. And some of it's about mindset. Some of it is about how to create and deliver content right now. But more than anything, that is really important.
And I love what Melissa is talking about, because really our mindset around any specific thing is going to really change and impact the level at which we approach a problem, the level at which we tackle anything to come up with a solution. So like, honestly, like just going back to it, if somebody had a subscription that I could subscribe to and learn how to cut my hair, I'd subscribe to it right now, you know? So like, there's an idea, you know, right there. So as we work on our mindset, we can move into a space of, you know, having things move to us quicker and attracting things. And number 2, like Melissa was talking about, avoiding having no life insurance. You know, sometimes it's interesting when we look at a financial plan, there's just some certain things that we need to have in place. And having life insurance is a foundation to a financial plan. So as we dive into that, it's a very common financial product that people tend to miss out on. I don't know if it's just because it's not as attractive as investments, if it's not as attractive as the saving money side of a financial plan, but it is the most foundational important component to a financial plan. And so some of the common questions that we get asked all the time is, how much coverage should I have? Why should I have it? What about the fact that right now I don't want to add any additional costs? And really, you know, how does it function as income replacement? So I want to address those major questions. Again, any other ones that you have, please put up. But number 1 is the question that's always asked is, how much coverage should I have? Well, any financial professional is going to advise 8 to 10 annual income. There are other ways and processes by which you can follow to kind of get to the penny how much you should have. General rule is 8 to 10 times. Now let's talk about why. Okay, I want to unpack this a little bit, because maybe we have people that rely on us, dependents or whatnot. Maybe we don't. Maybe we're not married. Maybe we don't have a significant other. Maybe it's just us, right? But there's still someone out there that it would have to manage the consequence of loss if we weren't here. So let's talk about why. So let me unpack these 3 pictures that you have over here on the slide. And number 1, think of the car. We've all either driven in one, maybe not recently, but we've all got a car, we've got a home or a roof over our head, and we all are familiar with a tree. Well, let's talk about this car real quick. We drive it to and from work or to the grocery store, or now only for essentials, right? But we drive that car, and number 1 is that's something we should probably insure, right? So we're probably going to have insurance on that. Then there's a home. We live in that sucker. Well, we probably are going to have renter's insurance, or we're going to at least have some form of mortgage coverage or whatnot. So out of these 3 things, you've probably got a tree in your backyard, or you've seen one near you. Imagine out of these 3 things, okay, which one are you going to insure first? Well, I'm sure that if we were having an open forum here, people would say either the car first, home second. And I don't know if I would even insure the tree. It's a tree, right? Well, now let me paint the picture for you a little bit. Imagine this tree is not just a normal tree. You ever grow up and your parents said, what do you think? Money grows on trees, right? Well, imagine this tree is a money tree, and it so happens to be planted in your backyard. Every month you go out to that money tree, you shake that sucker, dollar bills fall to the ground, you collect the dollar bills, you come back home, you pay your bills, and it's off to the races. And every month, like clockwork, you're able to go to that tree, shake it, collect the money, and pay the bills. Well, unbeknownst to us, a storm comes through, kind of like the one that maybe you all experienced yesterday. We had it was like a blizzard, and then it was 70 degrees, and then it was like a hailstorm, and then it was like 50 degrees. It was crazy. But imagine that storm comes through and blows over the tree and knocks it over, and it can no longer grow. It can no longer disperse money. Now I'm going to re-ask the question, which would you insure first? Your answer now, knowing now what you know about that tree, is probably that the tree would be insured first. When it comes to finances, you are that money tree for your household. You are the greatest asset in providing the funds that your household needs to flourish. So that's why when it comes to a financial plan, that's the most important thing right now to have in place. But the other question is additional cost. Shane, I'm not looking to add anything. for me in my household, the way I look at it is with Melissa and I, God forbid something happens to me, Verizon's not coming knocking saying, hey, you know what? I really appreciate that y'all have been clients for the last 10 years. You paid your $120 phone bill like clockwork every month. Melissa, I know it's hard without Shane. Here's $1 million check. That's not happening. So that's where we say, hey, that's a priority, is that we have that in place now. And right now, there are companies that aren't even doing the underwriting. I mean, they're not issuing coverage during this current time, whereas we are actually extending coverage for 5 months longer during conditional underwriting, meaning somebody, for as low as like $35 a month, coverage for 5 months. It's crazy. Like, that's crazy. So that's awesome. And it replaces your income, and that's the whole purpose of it. Now, life insurance, again, the reason it's a foundation is because it's not something that you just get. It has to be applied for. It has to be something that you get approved for. And so in a financial plan, that's generally the missing piece to the puzzle, because we could be 85 years old, not very healthy, and get a retirement plan, but not necessarily life insurance. So that's where it comes in as a foundation. So yeah.
Shane, to wrap this around to like right now, because in the right now we're worrying, I'm looking at the chat box and we're seeing things like worrying of paying rent, and how am I going to pay for the inventory that, I know I'm going to need to order in this interim. And so I just want to make sure too, like what we're talking about when we're really looking at it big picture, is that so many of us put this on the back burner. We continue to say, oh, I need life insurance. I should have life insurance. That sounds like a great idea. I'm going to do that one day when I have the time. And I think we all probably have come to, sorry, I'm moving my phone because sometimes interference, but I think we've all come to this place where we have time. Time's not something that we're lacking at this moment for those that are non-essential workers. And we're now being shown more than ever all the stuff that we did have time for, that we didn't prioritize for whatever reason that is, whether it's uncomfortable or life insurance being tied to death. There's just a ickiness about it that like most of us don't want to plan for that, but it's the responsible thing to do. So I think if I'm understanding what you're saying is, it's like, now is the time to evaluate, because yes, we're in a crisis, and it doesn't mean go for the biggest policy, spend the most money, but evaluate these things because we're facing real health obstacles that any one of us can encounter. And if we don't have that, if we do have a salon and say we wanted, I know we have many salon owners on here, and you want to leave that to your family, God forbid something happened, like, do you have coverage where they would be able to take that over, or to pay outright and complete your business? Is that why we should be evaluating it right now in this downtime?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I would say it's important too to look at our greatest asset is our ability to make money. So right now, there's a lot of things, thankfully, that we can do to defer payments, to move payments out, to work things around those bills that are due. But this is really a great opportunity and time for us to reprioritize our investment into our monthly planning for finances. And that's where, again, yeah, to your point, our greatest asset is the ability to work. So right now, I would rather have $11, $12 of life insurance than $11 or $12 of Netflix. Like, especially right now. Like, if there's, I'm not a big proponent of fear tactics. I hate fear tactics. You might see some out there from people that are in our industry. If that's the case, I do apologize up front for them. But I do believe wholeheartedly that actually I just did medicals yesterday for our life insurance. And today I'm thinking, well, I'll probably increase that sucker, because I don't know. I just don't know. So now it's even more real to me of saying, I just want to make sure that I've got things buttoned up. And so as a company, that's something we do, is we make sure that things are shored up, buttoned up. You've got everything covered.
Yeah, and I know you guys also offer, and we'll make it available in the Facebook group, in our private Facebook page. Melissa, I know you had an awesome download for resources and ways to, really evaluate your spending. Yeah, and she just put it in the chat for those of you that are on live, but we'll make sure we copy that over to the group as well, because that's also, the money guide and evaluating some of these things when, for some of us, again, I said in the beginning, it's a welcomed pause or an unwelcomed worry. And so it can depend on the moment or the hour, the day, it doesn't matter, where you feel almost paralyzed in the unknowing. And right now, having some things, when you're saying our highest value is our ability to work, to be able to, if nothing else, it might not be work that earns us a paycheck, but it's work towards something that is going to earn us security, which is that long-term plan. So we can put ourselves to work right now, again, not increasing what we're earning at the end of the week, but it starts to implement those things we're going to need to be long lasting.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. We really look at a model called transfer spending, 𝘠𝘭𝘭𝘪𝘴, which has been really beneficial in Melissa and I's lives. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Because, Anika, I appreciate what you posted about how to pay all missed payments after this is over. And I've even looked at that for our own mortgage and costs there, is saying, okay, well, companies are going to work out plans, and it's actually a time to renegotiate rates and whatnot. Right now, we're actually in a very strong position financially to renegotiate certain rent costs and certain things of that nature. So, I mean, right now is a great time for us to look at a plan to say, hey, even once this blows over, how can I reassess my current position to reallocate funds accordingly? And if I can do something now that begins a financial plan that's, I mean, $35 to $100 a month or whatever it is, and not have to worry for the next 5-6 months. I mean, that's a great strategy to begin developing the necessary runway needed to land this plane financially once all this blows over.
Yeah, and that really brings us to the third thing to avoid financially right now. And I do want to acknowledge those of you who did post in the chat your biggest concerns. And one of the biggest things, you guys, is having conversations with the financial institutions. It's really easy right now. I know it is, because we were in this position 6 weeks ago or however long ago when this began, and we were getting advice from our financial mentors like, hey, call the financial companies and tell them, like, listen, I'm not paying. And I thought, that's crazy to tell someone you're not paying them. And I was like, we're not doing that. We're not going to do that. And then 6 days later, I heard it from another person, or we heard it from another person. And finally, we're like, okay, we need to look into this a little bit more, which is why we made that financial resource guide. And having a plan moving forward as far as how to minimize your expenses and increase your available money is more important now than ever. So having a plan, having a business emergency plan. So I know some of you are thinking, you idiot, like I didn't have an emergency plan and I'm screwed. And I don't know if you're a fan of Rachel Hollis, whether you are or not. Her podcast is one of the ones, did I reference it? I think maybe I did not reference it in the podcast guide, but she has a podcast and she talks about right now is the time where that 6-month emergency guide that you have for your business is coming into play. And she said, and some of you are listening to this right now and you're thinking, I don't have that, Rach. Like, I never made that plan. And for those of us who haven't made the plan, now is the time. I know it might seem like, no, actually, it's a really bad time to make an emergency plan. But using what you've learned now, we talk about emergency funds with our clients all the time. And most Americans, something like 60% of Americans, have less than $1,000 in savings, which communicates to us that most people don't have an emergency plan. And right now is the time to evaluate, how can I create an emergency plan, which is why working one-on-one with a financial professional is so important, because we help you figure out how to free up money, how to create more resources available. I mean, one of the things that we have done is we have 2 cars, which neither of which we're driving much right now. So one of them, we put our car insurance into storage. We're saving $120 a month just on that. Mm-hmm. So that's something I hope you can take away from this, is if you have more than one vehicle, put one of them onto storage. And sometimes there's stipulations with if it's finance and this and that, but most of the companies that would have done your car loan are willing to do that right now for you when you get so you have to talk to the finance company and the insurance company. But also, let's say, so it's already been at least a month since most of those we're talking to have been able to see clients and earn income. What if it was like this for 6 months? Now, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but what if that was the case? What would you do? And maybe I've talked to some people and they're asking themselves, like, is there something else I should do to make money? And maybe there is. Alyssa, we'll answer your question in a second about telling financial institutions that you're not going to pay them. That's a great question. But asking yourself, like, okay, if I don't make income for 6 months from my main source of income, what will I do? And having those conversations with yourself is not fun. It's totally terrifying. But if you can have a plan financially that you know, okay, no matter what, like, I'm going to be okay. And maybe that looks like, you guys, maybe that looks like getting personal loans right now and doing whatever you can to secure cash. And I'm going to reference the podcast guide again, because there's a podcast on there by a gentleman named Chris Harder, and he talks about this. And he has a lot more experience. He actually used to work in banking in 2008 when this happened. And he goes through some really practical things of how to communicate with financial institutions, but we'll give you advice on that here. And the last thing I'm going to say on having a plan, creating 3 months of runway. So 3 months of runway would really look like, let's say your monthly expenses are $6,000. How can you obtain $18,000 within the next 45 days? And that sounds like a lot of money, but maybe you have investments that you can pull from. Maybe you have, and I'm not saying that you would pull from them, but you would have the ability to, God forbid you needed access to that money. Maybe you have money in a savings account. Maybe you have a family member that would lend you money. Maybe you have the ability to get a personal loan that you could convert to cash. And looking at how can I create 3 months of available expenses in my spending. Do you have anything to say about that, Shane? Mm-hmm. Do you want to answer this question?
Yeah, and again, I think that this is really an approach, because I want to be very conscious of the fact that I've talked to people that have both they've had that runway and they haven't had that runway. So one of the things Melissa and I've had to learn in this process too of financial management, because we were clients way before we were agents, right? So what we discovered is that it's always critical to create a budget where you're at versus trying to have more to create a budget, right? It's always important to say, look, if I'm making, let's say it's $2,000 a month, how can I be lean and mean on 1,000? That's how we build a budget, versus saying, hey, if I'm making $2,000 a month, how can I build a budget around $2,000? So that's kind of like a whole nother story. But to address your question, Alyssa, where you're saying, how do you go about telling a financial institution that you're not paying them? Well, so, there's some tact to the process, but, I'll give you an example, a real example of what we did. So Genesis Credit Union, they have my car loan. Okay. We owe like $20,000 on the car, whatever. So called them and I explained, listen, we're kind of in a spot right now where, yes, we are still making an income, but we're not really sure what's going on with the market. I would like to find out what my options are to defer payments and or forgiveness of payments. What are my options? And here's the thing, y'all. Financial institutions, whether you're Visa, MasterCard, Chase, Dort Federal, Financial Credit Union, I don't care who you are working right now on strategies of keeping clients. That's your goal. You want to keep clients. So when a client is in a position that they've shown good rapport with you and payment history, they want to keep you as a client. Believe you me, they want to keep you. So I said, listen, and I only had the loan for like 6-7 months. So it's not like I've been a Genesis Credit Union client for forever. They said, great, listen, we can defer up to 2 months of payments. It just goes on the back end of the loan. So instead of it being let's say a 4-year loan, it's a 4-year and 2-month loan. Big deal. Great. So that's one way that you can go about negotiating it with them. And I'll just tell you this right now. I think a lot of my conversations with people is really more so that people are in a spot of fear, like, and they're frozen in that place, and that place prevents them from taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's maybe more the challenge that people are facing, right? So I want to be very conscious of the fact that if that's you, where you're feeling frozen, please get in touch with us. Let's talk, if nothing else, to talk to help move you out of that place, right? Because that's a big deal, believe me. I mean, we've got some people that we know very near and dear to us that it's great hopping on a webinar and hearing how someone can say, look, do X, Y, and Z, and your world hunger is no longer an issue. But it's different to actually apply it in your household, in your own life, in your own heart. And so for us, I want to be conscious of that. But I guess the biggest thing is that there is a way. So Alyssa, I guarantee you, any and all bills you have, and I even saw some comments about student loans, they want to work with you.
Yeah, student loans especially right now are not requiring payments. I think I've heard some not until July. I know mine, actually, I didn't know this until I logged into our online portal, but I was paid ahead for about 6 months. So I thought, yep, I'm not paying this again until January. And listen, some of you on this are probably in a different financial position than others on here. And we're doing okay financially, but we're still taking advantage of what the financial institutions are doing as far as waiving payments. One thing that we really don't suggest is putting any kind of loans into forbearance, because what that means is, let's say you have a mortgage through Chase and they're like, yeah, we won't require payments for April and May, but then come June, you're going to also owe April and May. That is how bankruptcies happen. You don't want to do that. If anything, you would want them to push it to another payment on the loan or disperse the one payment over the rest of the loan available. But yeah, companies, we use QuickBooks for our personal accounting. I got on the phone, it was an hour-long conversation, but I got on the phone and they're giving us 70% off for the next 3 months. Did we need to not pay less? Not necessarily, but if there are small business resources available, we're taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
So does anyone else have questions about those specific things? If not, we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, you know, when we're engaged in conversation with people about finances, I mean, you deal with a lot of people maybe that are in the world of finances, and regardless of where we are all at financially speaking, it's a very misconceived notion that, you know, you've got to be rolling in the dough to have someone who helps you with your financial planning and whatnot. But here's the deal, y'all. Right now, us as a company, we're bringing on 50,000 new clients every single month. I mean, that's a big deal. That means a lot of people right now are really taking advantage of the opportunity to connect with somebody in the financial space. And
maybe we should say, we work with a larger company. Shane and I individually are not taking on 50,000 new clients. We're probably bringing on between 20 and 40 new clients a month individually.
Yeah. But that also being said, you know, I've had somebody say something about, hey, Shane, life insurance, you talk about that being a foundation. I've always thought about doing it. I just haven't taken action. But the problem is, Shane, is I'm not spending $200, $300 a month on life insurance. Well, you know, unfortunately, that is what a lot of agents out there have tried to sell. And the reality is we go for the right thing for the right person. And it can be as low as $35 a month. So just to debunk any concerns that people might have about that being like a huge cost factor, it doesn't have to be. So yeah, I mean, that's where I would say we are.
Yeah. So if you guys have questions, feel free to, I don't know how Lindsay facilitates this.
Yeah.
But, we have our contact info up here, and yes. It's supposed to be shaneandmelissa.com/book, not the email /book. That was a mistake.
Yeah, so
But
we will, I mean, just from you guys, thank you so much, because I know some of the things that I really pulled out of that was really thinking of how we can reallocate the funds that we have right now. So going back and doing that renegotiation. Am I breaking up? I just want to make sure you can hear me. Okay, good. Everybody's so small. And then really focusing another action step that we can do is that content creation, creating the content that we need for the future that we always wish we had more of, right? And this doesn't have to be imagery, because people were like, well, how do I create content? I can't go out and have more photos. But the reality is right now, even if you're starting to pre-write your posts, or you're feeling particularly impacted by a video you watched, like write down that content, start to create content for yourself in the future to go along with those future headshots that you're doing, or the inspiration that you're seeing, whatever it may be, you guys. I loved the car in storage, and to evaluate that if you're a 2-car household, and that's something that could be useful for you to free up some funds. Also, I really, and I did this in my own life, because we went through, my husband and I went through a financial program this last summer. And so, you know, having a clear idea of where your finances are right now, even in our own life with all the unexpectedness, we've been able to know where we have resources. So it doesn't mean we're going to touch them. It doesn't mean I'm going to dip into those things, but it's allowed me to have the peace of mind that if need be, it's there, or who could I ask, or how would I get it? And with that, there's more confidence, and confidence means that I'm literally vibrating at a higher level, believing that this is going to be a smaller part. And that by nature gets me into a more creative space, gets me into more action, gets me into feeling more positive about where I am. So I loved that, to just take a look, peel back all the layers, you guys. Do you have an old savings account that you forgot about, you know, that you started back in high school? Or have you been tucking away money in a Christmas savings fund? Or do you have a pension plan that you could pull from if need be? This isn't me, because I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't me recommending you do those things, but knowing that it's there, or knowing that mom could lend you $500 or $5,000. Like, these things are important because they help our peace of mind. And then I loved the idea of look at your budget right now, evaluate last month's, not this month's, because the reality is this month is different. We haven't been moving as much. We haven't been ordering product. We haven't been making money, whatever the situation. But look at last month, look at the month before, pull out last year's taxes, look at how much you made, and then think about, I loved what Shane said, getting lean and mean, or no, lean and mean on, less than that. So, reduce that, whatever it is that you made last month or last year, think about saving a percentage of that, or how could I live? Where could I save? I love that. Looking at the subscriptions. I know we're going to post the money guide in the Facebook group. And then thank you, Melissa, for the difference in terminology of forbearance versus really, when you're delaying a payment, really getting clarity on what that looks like so that we don't actually hurt ourselves more in the future. So those were some of my really big takeaways. If any of the other leaders, before I stop the recording, if any of the other leaders have something that really stuck with them, please, by all means, jump off of Zoom, and then, or jump off of mute. And then we're going to stop the recording, and we'll close out with our happy Q&A in the event that you have any specific questions you'd like to ask. And that is always our gift to you for those that make the time and carve the time out to join us here live. So I'll give my partners just a second if they want. I know some of them are multitasking. Awesome. Oh, I can't tell if someone's jumping off. Okay, so Melissa, I'm going to just pause this, Melissa and Shane, and thank you for everyone who is watching in the future. Make sure you subscribe at our YouTube channel, follow, share if you found something useful, follow whoever our speakers are today, Shane and Melissa, as they will continue in their area of genius.